1994 was a year of 12 months, starting in January and ending, rather suspiciously in my opinion, in December. Have you ever noticed that the years mysteriously died just after Santa visits? Father Christmas, are you a phantom poisoner? Anyway, good. 1994 was the year that England fans and some English players pretended to be Irish for the summer, as the Republic of Ireland did what neither Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland nor England could do and played in the World Cup in the USA. The World Cup was ultimately won by Brazil after Italy's Roberto Baggio hit a penalty about as good as his haircut to hand them victory. Wet, Wet, Wet achieved what Bryan Adams did and ruined film soundtracks for us by taking the main song from Richard Curtis's comedy 4 Weddings and a Funeral and decided to just squat at the top of the charts for what felt like a millennia with the song Love Is All Around, a rather asinine cover of a Trogs hit from 1967. It was there for a solid 15 weeks. That's a good chunk of the year for people to listen to shit music. Shawshank Redemption, the movie you're kind of obliged to say is your favourite movie of all time if someone asks you, came out in 1994. Do I like it? It's alright. That's the end of that. In video games, Nintendo declares 1994 as the year of the cartridge, as work begins on the then named Ultra 64. Funnily enough, it's Nintendo sticking to the cartridge that would later see them hand victory of the console market to Sony because their plan to release Final Fantasy VII wasn't achievable on a cartridge, and so Square went to Sony. Oops. The aforementioned Sony PlayStation came out on December the 3rd, and the rest, as they say, is history. I don't know who's saying that, but they are, and they're right, it is history. Sega would go hardware crazy towards the end of 1994, throwing out the portable Mega Drive, known as the Nomad, the ill-fated 32X add-on, and releasing the Saturn, all within months of each other in various parts of the world. It's worth watching Kim Justice's video on how that will work out for Sega the following months in 1995, because needless to say, it didn't go too well. Now on to them, they're the video games. Yes, it's top 10 list time, kids, and I think this will be a contentious one due to some notable absences from my top 10. There's no places for platform legends such as Donkey Kong Country, nor either Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic and Knuckles, or one of the last great games on the Amiga, Jazz Jackrabbit. Although all very good video games, my list is horrendously subjective. I am a belligerent arsehole who is usually wrong about most things, and let it be known now that I have terrible taste. I even sometimes wear chinos. It's disgraceful. The rules are that the game had to appear on its original hardware in 1994. It doesn't matter if I played it while listening to Let Loose Is Crazy For You during a balmy summer's day in 1994, while downing a bottle of Sunny D when it made you all orange instead of what it does now. If you ever even see it, was in Poundland the other day I saw, and it looked very wan and pale. It misses those chemicals and sugar, poor thing. Or I might have played it in 1997 when I was having my first Red Bull and vodka, or maybe on the day that Bruce Forsyth died in 2017. The rules are that it had to come out in 1994 unless a conversion made it significantly different sometime later. After all that flim-flammery, here come the games. Jolly good. I think Ecstatica is a real forgotten gem. The Andrew Spencer Studios put together this rather rudimentary looking ellipsoid polygonal puzzle horror adventure, woof, that was a sentence, that was infuriatingly difficult but slightly cumbersome to control. But what it did have was a brilliant offbeat storyline that oozed atmosphere, arguably even more so than the more illustrious Resident Evil title that Capcom would put out a couple of years afterwards. It was darkly comedic, downright unsettling at times, and put together by just two coders, Andrew Spencer and his friend Alan Mandron. The ellipsoids were very much a product of the time, but come on, at least because they look so rudimentary and strange, they could put a cock and balls in the game. They wouldn't have been able to do that with texture mapping. So, F you, yeah, ellipsoid hating fools. Actual soccer was a bit crap though, wasn't it? Straight from one underrated gem to another. Considering what fuss was being made about Sega's other Model 1 hardware games like Virtua Fighter and Virtua Racing, it always surprises me just how forgotten about Wing War is. Yes, the Model 2 games like Daytona and Virtua Fighter 2 looked better, but Model 2 wasn't offering good old-fashioned dogfighting. As a single-player game, Wing War is terrible, really. It plays sort of like a really crappy version of Star Fox, but with a racing element. But the low-poly two-player dogfight over a city was where it's at. Pitching a Harrier jump jet against a World War I Fokker. That's Fokker. Triplane may seem absurd, but that's because it is. Absurd fun, that is. No one will ever take away those fond memories of myself and my college crew playing this at the Tunbridge Quasar before they turned it into a Wetherspoons. This is me very much chewing at the nostalgia biscuit, but you'll have to forgive me, it is my list. If you would prefer to think of Micro Machines at number 9, you can. Let's pretend that's in there, yeah, with its funny cartridge with the extra slots, because that's also a good game. And look, there's Violet Berlin out of Bad Influence. Hello! I must admit that I preferred X1, which is why that game scooped my rather pathetic honour of being my game of 1993, but this is quite down the list in 8th. A lot of that is down to just how much X1 revitalised the flagging franchise, whereas X2 didn't have the same initial wowzers in my trousers impact. Objectively though, X2 is possibly the better game. There's more animal-based bosses which wield impressive weaponry, hidden upgrades throughout the well-designed levels that make reaching that ending just that little more achievable, because in the Mega Man tradition, this game sure ain't easy. The template was sound as anything, so it didn't take much for it to also be amazing. It's just my jaw was still on the floor from last year's game. Look for this to be a running theme. There's a lot of games in this list that are very much sort of 1.5s rather than full sequels. Such as the next one, in fact. Following on from the previous year's X-Wing, TIE Fighter takes that game engine, but takes you out of the orange jumpsuits of the Rebellion and places you in the harsh jackboots of the Dastardly Empire. Not that you think that they're dastardly, as the game neatly presents itself as sort of like a propaganda piece, with the space Nazis shown as arbiters of peace, law and order in a ever chaotic galaxy. I think that's quite some genius writing. Improvements made include better missions, improved AI of the pilots, and numerous graphical and gameplay enhancements. TIE Fighter is a definite improvement on the already great X-Wing title, and still involved in the discussion of greatest Star Wars video games of all time, as it bloody well should be. All hail the Emperor, eh? Him and his porridgey face. And once again, another sequel here that's more of an improvement of the first one than a direct sequel. It's Doom 2. Doom 2 isn't really a quantum leap better than its predecessor. However, when you have freaking sexy old Doom as your starting point, just making it wear a dash of eyeshadow and making it give you the lust eyes is likely to make me go all giddy and need to sit down. A year on, and the team at ID had gotten used to the engine that they'd made, and they were now capable of adding to the scale and size of Doom's hellish game world. There were more weapons available, and the enemy's roster was expanded, with fearsome bosses from Doom 1 becoming just regular enemies in Doom 2. Whew. There was no need to reinvent the wheel with Doom 2. More but better was all that was needed. And with that, Doom 2 truly delivered. I'm probably going to go into more detail for their separate video for Aliens vs Predator, which will be coming soonish, I guess. But AVP is one fine-ass game. A superlative scrolling beat-em-up coming at the very end of the scrolling beat-em-up's tenure as a fixture in amusement arcades. AVP was a cracking way for them to bow out and make room for loads of driving cabs and dance mats and all that shenanigans. The usual classy, punchy, kicky action from the makers of Final Fight is joined by Street Fighter 2 style special move motion attacks as wave after wave of xenomorph is put down with pulse rifle, fist, sword from an anime girl, Predator weaponry, and even a powerlifter arm, but attached to Predator 1's hero Dutch Schaefer. Or at least a possible ancestor of his. Not ancestor, what's the other one? Progeny? Yeah, one of them. Yeah, this is going to need its own video. It's a mad game, it's brilliant, and I recommend you play it. I unfortunately never made a home conversion though, but they are putting out on that weird Capcom joystick thing. It looks pretty. Final Fantasy VI, known as Final Fantasy III on its initial release, was a landmark RPG. It was the title where the series grew up. A rebellion against a dictatorship was the story at its core, but a ton of associated dramas with an adult viewpoint also ran concurrently with the main drama. There was characters questioning the use of chemical weapons in warfare, 14 playable characters that all have developed story arcs, often about redemption, even teen pregnancy is part of the proceedings. Video games up until this point had never had better writing, but here it was, all squished onto a 16-bit cartridge with some of the system's very best graphics and sound to boot. A really phenomenal RPG this, well worth playing. It's on a variety of systems from the PlayStation to even your humble iPhone. Well worth having a go. Go do it. As I've pointed out before, one of the noticeable things about 1994 is how many of the classic game sequels were essentially just sort of exceptional refinements of already great titles. SWOS, Sensible World of Soccer, is no different. The gameplay is not really very different from the original 1992 Sensible Soccer. It's still got that 8 directions with a single context-sensitive button control, but that's why it excels as a game. It really is very playable and very easy to get into. Where it does differ though is with the addition of its managerial season. And its incredible 1,500 teams with 27,000 players. It's a simple, brilliant game with a huge scope, and it's still fully customisable, as indeed still being played and upgraded to this day with fresh season updates. England players like Jordan Pickford, Marcus Rashford and Raheem Sterling weren't even emergent from the womb hole when SWOS debuted, but people are still enjoying it and still putting those England players into the game now in a squat 2D form. It's such an enduring game and probably the best soccer game of all time. Super Metroid was the third instalment of Samus Aran's adventures, a terse, atmospheric jaunt through the loneliest alien caverns that you'd ever been through. Popularising the Metroidvania genre, Super Metroid had you searching the sprawling map for power-ups that would assist you in accessing unreachable areas previously encountered on your adventure. Astonishing graphics for the Super Nintendo were paired with brilliant sound design to create a tone that will make you feel just alone and uneasy, almost as much as I do in everyday life. The gameplay is paced superbly, and it's an action adventure that is just as rewarding to play on your 20th go through as your first. Definitely a top 5 game in the history of the Super Nintendo, and one with a very strong legacy to boot. The Neo Geo was awash with scrolling beat-em-ups, arcadey sports titles, and a veritable mountain of different yet very high-quality one-on-one fighter franchises by the time that 1994 rolled around. 4 years on since its initial release, the system was showing little signs of ageing, even against the rise of swanky polygonal graphics on the other arcade cabinets from the likes of Namco and Sega. One game that didn't look that remarkable, running on Neo Geo hardware though, was Data East's Windjammers. A simplistic looking court-played host to 6 radical looking 90s dudes and dudettes viewed from above. People that did look at the track sequence on the cabinet saw just sort of an amped up Pong really. It's little wonder that arcade goers were more keen to put more money in the Mortal Kombat 2 or Daytona cabinets, but more fool them. The people that did play, particularly those who also found a buddy to join them, were in for one of the greatest arcade treats of all time. Windjammers is one of the most accessible competitive games out there in any genre. The controls are straightforward, the rules simple. Within a single game, players will know exactly what they're doing and will want more and more of it. It is crack served on a frisbee. To say it's just undemanding fun though would be doing Windjammers a grotesque disservice. The special moves, arena differences and techniques give Windjammer a depth up there with some of the very best fighting games. You have to think tactically but very quickly, without hesitation, and have the skill to pull it off. It's still played at game conventions quite regularly because it is that kind of game. It's timeless, it really is. Windjammers still sits in my all-time favourite list and at the very top of this one. Download it for your PlayStation 4, your Switch, your PC. I don't know if it's on the Xbox, but it might be. But do it because it is fantastic. A real classic, this. Don't miss out. And that brings another highly competitive year to an end. There was some games that I really wanted to put on there, like Bloodlines and Contra Hardcore and Batman the Animated Series. They were very, very close. But they didn't quite take that biscuit and chew on it and then realise it was Garibaldi and gone, oh, I wish I had better biscuits than this. that's also the year's top 10s wrapped up for another year. I'll see you in the summer of 2020 for 95 to 99, if I'm not dead or blind or have been sort of stung by bees on my fingers and can't type. Okay, thanks, bye.